Hi everybody, it is Pseudo. I'm with Screen and Blank. And I'm getting noise from my system, which I really shouldn't be getting because I've got like nothing to give me noise, which is really weird. Anyway, let's fix that. Okay, so welcome to Campfire, the second episode. We have a special guest coming next week, and we have a potential guest in the week after that, but this particular episode, we are just us three. We three wise people.
I wouldn't call us kings.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
they
say
say kings.
musketeers, but yeah.
Kings.
No, I
The
don't want to.
Musketeers die.
I don't want to be a king.
Royalty?
I don't want
Certainly
people bowing to me. That's just not my thing. It's your thing, Blank, not mine. But anyway, yes, as I was saying, we don't have a guest this week, and they're both drinking at the same time. It's like they're twins. House of our. It's just,
We bonded one whole episode and we're already synced. Our menses are the same.
It's on the same wavelength. There's a whole big pond between us. It doesn't even matter.
wow. Yes. So
I just reach across to.
he's actually below you. He's actually
Well,
below
to me,
you.
he's there.
It's gonna look different.
You
to
don't know
you.
where my hand's going.
Right, let's leave the hands behind. Anyway, moving on, swiftly crashing forward into topics that this show is actually supposed to be about, aka communities and guilds. So before I go too far into it, have you guys had a good week with your communities and guilds?
Busy. Yeah.
Me? Yes.
Succinct answers. Just what we wanted
Yep.
from you.
Uh-huh. We're gonna make you work for this week.
This is what I get for inviting trolls onto the show. Alrighty then. We're going to move very quickly. Go ahead, Blank. Say what you want to say, because you know you want to say something.
No, we were trying to be good. You can't be all like, Mama Bear, put us towards the next thing, and then be like, oh, well, that's the answer you got. Tell me more. But you just said stop, so we stop, and then you're like, go. Like, it's like red light, green light, and you can't decide which one you want to hold up. Like, just let us know what you want, Pseudo. Just tell us.
I'll tell you what I want. I'll tell you what I really, really want.
Really want. Thank you. Thank you for finishing that.
You're very welcome. What I want is for us to go into the survival guide. As we had stated last week, each week we're going to be tackling a topic that is all about surviving in a community. And before we can do that, we kind of have to tackle the conversation of the definition of a guild, the definition of a community. Are there differences? Are there similarities? So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick, because I picked on Screen last week first, I'm going to pick on you, Blank. I want you to give the world what you think is a definition for a guild or a community. Are they the same? Are they different? You know, how do you view it?
You have to look at them and really define them clearly. A guild normally has an objective. For the purposes of my organization, we have divisions. That can be a guild, a clan, whatever it is. But they're smaller organizations specifically for a game, specifically for one smaller aspect. A community can be everything and anything. It's larger numbers, it's larger members. They could be a community of just role players, whether it's just pen and paper, whether it's online, whether it's for streaming purposes. But guilds normally have a very direct and normally one game or thing that they're doing. So that's how we've always defined it. Guild has to have a game, a direction, that sort of a thing. Community is just like-mindedness.
Would you say that clans are similar to communities, or are they something else altogether different?
Clan, it depends on mostly the game that you're using it for. In certain games that's a part of their nomenclature or the words that they're using. So a clan is also just another name for guild. Mm-hmm. Guild, clan, kinship, whatever it is. Sure. Whatever it is that the game uses, right. That is what is their way to annotate people that are playing their game. When I think community, I think a broader, a community is a bunch of Twitch streamers or YouTubers They're people who like to play games who also do those things. There's a general interest. So that's how, like I said, for my organization, we have a community, but then we also have what we call divisions or guilds or clans that are very specific to specific games.
Okay. Do you agree with him? Do you disagree with him, Screen?
Um, Essentially, I think he's got the concept of your guild and your community pinned down. I mean, looking at it, a guild is essentially in a real life situation. They're thought of as an association of people engaged in the same occupation back in the day, with a primary objective being mutual support.
Mm.
I mean, guilds when they were a real thing, they kind of guaranteed property. They had a charter. They had rules for professional conduct, and they also had a charter of self-governance. These are the sort of things that you still see within virtual guilds, and you do tend to see guilds, clans, divisions. They all have that same concept. They have self-governance. They have a primary objective being that mutual support, and they tend to have a charter. They tend to have structure, and they'll tend to, like Blank has said, they'll have objectives. And those objectives will generally tend to be within games, and within whatever sort of environment they're playing in, and they'll move towards those objectives. Whereas communities tend to be a larger, obviously, collection of people who will have some sort of commonality. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a commonality in terms of objectives. Communities will tend to be, think about a virtual community being a community without a physical place or a home, but when people think of community, they tend to think of neighborhoods. So your own community being your own locality, and that's something that in the real world a lot of people will put a lot of focus on, the physical locality of it. But when you think about a community, it's a place where people come together. It's where they'll interact and where they'll share some sort of commonality. On the internet, you've got a lot of things like, message boards, IRC chats, which aren't really what you think of as a community. They have the ability for people to come and go in an anonymous fashion, and not really put down roots, and make bonds with the people that are there on a more permanent basis. So the things that bind that community or that larger group tend to be those friendships and those bonds that are cemented by that permanence that a community is built on. So that's why you tend to find communities will grow from things like guilds, and a lot of people think of gaming communities as like overarching over guilds, which is why you have communities with lots of little guilds, because those are the more focused, objective-based parts of those communities, where the permanence of the larger pool of people will come from their common experience of playing within those objective-based groups.
Okay, so basically what you two are saying is that a community is a collection, a large collection of individuals who have something in common, whether it's their first name or a game they play or a genre of games that they play. But for it to be narrowed down to actually guild, there needs to be objective and focus to a specific task and target and goal.
To some extent. I'd
So
say
the
that a
community
major
kind of sets the rules, but the guild gives the goal and the drive.
for objective-based communities and guilds, I'd say so. I think a big part of community though is still that permanence that you have. You can have guilds that people come in and out of and don't really have that permanence. People will come into a guild, they'll leave after they meet their objectives, or they get burnt out of the game. Communities tend to hold people there through that commonality and that experience that they've gone through. And guilds, again, they have that whole mutual support thing. So whether they have goals or not, you have people who have a much more focused environment to play in. So guilds don't always have to have a direct goal, although they will tend to within progressive-based guilds that will either raid or have things that they want to achieve. But the guilds themselves within an MMO or a gaming environment will tend to have a more limited common support structure.
Okay. Your thoughts on that, Blank? You are muted currently.
I was just kind of off on a little. Oh, I'm aware.
Okay.
I got a little
He's
button
just
on here. It
like
tells me
sitting
it just
there
says.
going, screens ranting. I'm just going to go over here and think about puppies.
Yes. Blank thinks
What
about puppies.
what
It's insightful.
all the time. What I was thinking about and was trying to actually, draw on my experience was, do you find that communities or guilds, have different retention while you were talking about their common goals? Because I've been a part of both very driven smaller guilds that had specific goals, but then I've also been a part of larger communities. I would imagine that one would see more, turnover than the other, but that's not always the case. Um,
I
I
think
wasn't really sure.
oh,
Go ahead.
the thing that gets me, when we're talking about guilds and communities, it's what is really the difference? Is it just the size? Because, you can have a community that is completely and utterly focused on one game, and it can be still a community. I mean, what is the real defining difference between the community and the guild? Is it just the fact that a community would have multiple guilds inside of it? Or is it,
It's the numbers that you need to achieve your objectives. If
well, someone
you're
could
doing,
argue very easily that a guild is exactly that exact thing. If you have something you want to accomplish, be it, we'll say PvP, and you need a set number to do World v
Mhm.
World, you're going to go off and look for people to do that with. That doesn't
yeah,
mean that your guild is not a community.
perhaps, but within the definitions that we're working with here, the guild is as large as it needs to be to achieve its goals. Now, for a game like Guild Wars 2, you had very, very large guilds to do things in World versus World. You needed them because you needed the manpower. You needed to break them down into smaller units, that sort of stuff. But I wouldn't call those communities. They were still guilds because you needed those numbers to complete an objective, to complete a goal, something physically in the game. Going forward, you know, I'm going to use subterfuge because it's really the easiest way to describe this. We have a community of just general membership where people join to play any sort of game under the sun. So we accept just regular gamers. However, we also have guilds, whether it's a role-playing guild here, whether it's a team from Europe playing League of Legends, whether it's whatever they are, and they have the people that they need to play, whether it's hardcore, competitive, casually, they fill their rosters. But we still, you're still a member of the general community. You know, this one's gaming. We have friends that are a member of what I would call a YouTube community. They create YouTube content. They are a YouTube community within themselves. They might like gaming. They might say that they're a part of our community, but when they strongly identify with one or the other, you know, they would say YouTube. So what they're looking to achieve is really what when you're actually looking to achieve something and not just part of a commonality is what I think makes what a guild or a clan or a division or whatever it is that you want to label that as, that smaller subgroup of the community aspect.
Okay. Now, based on what you guys are saying, I mean, you could almost, if you wanted to come up with analogies, and this, I blame NK, because when I spoke with him about tanking, he was analogy man, and it seems to have, like, stuck in my brain. But if you wanted to, say, equate a community to something that people could understand who were not gamers, you're looking at an actual organization or a corporation. However, if you wanted to really understand guilds, what you're looking at is something like marketing department or PR or sales or what have you. So based on the way we're describing things, at least the way you guys are, and I kind of agree with you here, when you start talking about a community, you are talking about a large collection of individuals that have a very certain level of social culture that fits for that community, period. Now, everything
Yes.
else that happens beyond that, if you wanted to do, say, a very focused goal, actually requires a guild. Now, this is not to say that a guild cannot be both a guild and a community, because anytime you get any group of people together, you're going to have some kind of social culture going on, whether it's one that, I don't know, wants to have a heavy amount of trash talk, or one that only wants to allow kids in, or one that only wants the adults to come in. There is a certain social structure and culture that is developed, and both of them have it. But if we wanted to properly draw a line in the sand and say, this is community, this is guild, community doesn't have the goal and focus. It's more focused on the definition of the culture, whereas the guild is more focused on the achievement of some goal. Focused goal.
I would agree. I would agree.
That seems fair enough, yeah. As a generalization, yeah.
Okay, well, fair enough. Before we move on then, I have a question for you. Which one do you prefer, and why?
Do you mean which one do I prefer to be in charge of?
Yeah, okay. Let's go with that, because obviously, you know, one of the number one reasons why people actually get involved in communities is some sense of power and control. And being as I know what your position is as the general manager, yeah, which one would you rather really be focused on? The quote-unquote corporation community or the department that is focused guild? That is a really funny face.
Because that's
go
really
ahead,
funny.
If he wants to think about this for a while.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So, as it stands, I love our community. It's great, but I am very much I'm a goal-orientated player. I will tend to set goals, and I still like playing games. I would tend to prefer to be a guild lead than a community lead. I still love being a community lead. Still love people we play with. But at the end of the day, being honest, community management, community leading, dealing with the community, it's a step further away from playing a game. First and foremost, what I started doing was playing games, and then I ended up getting to a stage where I was helping lead some raids. Then I ended up being a guild lead, and then I ended up moving to other games, and it progressively got to that stage. And it's something where our community has grown quite organically, and that's great. But I still love playing games. I still love running guilds, and at the end of the day, yeah, your community, your time you spend running a community is less time you get to play a game. And at the end of the day, I want to do that.
Okay. Your thoughts then, Blank?
It happens over time, as was kind of mentioned by Screen. You run a guild, and then it kind of just turns into more. And I think why I had that funny face was I enjoy taking one very small hardcore group and doing hardcore stuff. The business end of it's very simple. You show up, you make 90% raids, you go bugger off. That was almost a swear.
It was very British of you to use such terminology.
You're
It's
welcome.
almost as if we would have said bollocks.
Oh, good. I'll use that one next time. But everything is very clearly defined. Whether you have DKP or loot systems or whatever it is, they're so much easier. Expectations, okay, the stress and other things are a lot more difficult, but the expectations up front are so much clearer. Running a community is 24/7. When WildStar released that hoverboard video, my phone blew up from people that were like, "You got to see this. We figured it out." I'm like, "What? Who died?" Like, I had no idea what was going on. But that's being a part of the community, being a part, so active in doing stuff. That stuff's gonna happen. There is no, I raided 4 or 5 hours. Now go away. Don't talk to me till tomorrow, and then we'll do it again till Thursday. Don't talk to me till Monday. It's all the time. It's very rewarding, but it is very, very time consuming.
Now, see, I find that interesting because both of you have talked about the progression of, yes, I started out as a player, I became a guild leader, and then all of a sudden I'm a part of more. Obviously, a conscious decision had to be made to take that step, because the reality is you could have a guild that remains a guild its entire existence, doesn't blow up into the community with 19 different games running under it, with 19 different guilds. And I want to give some hats off to our watchers, because Vrog has stated back in the Middle Ages, many guilds grouped together and created communities. But also within the guild, there's a hierarchy, which is like a community. And the thing is, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I think the terms can be used synonymously. I do. But I think that if we start talking about a community, I think we need to have some kind of clear definition. which is why I like the concept of it being more focused on the culture. Because, I mean, I am involved in Enigma, and everyone knows this. And someone joked earlier today that all I was going to say was Enigma this, Enigma that, Enigma this. The reality is I could, because I like what I do. I love the group that I'm a part of. I love the guild that I am in, but I love the community as well. Which is why I found it interesting, because I'm not in a quote-unquote community. I'm in a guild that has a community. So for me, my happiness is in a guild that has a community that has a very strong culture, a very strong social culture. And that is how I see it. So for me, I'm happy where I am.
Interesting.
Now, this does mean that we need to get TeamBarry, TeamCasey, put your dukes up, which one you guys voting for. And before I actually make you guys pick, I will remind our folks, Campfire stories, these are scenarios that are presented by you guys that we tackle with our experience and debate it out. And last week we had Stoutpint bring an interesting example to us. And the scenario that was brought to us is about Barry and Casey. Barry and Casey are both members of your guild. And, well, we could also say community, but we'll go with guild this time because it's focused. So they're members of your guild. Barry has shown up to every single raid, has a fat stack of DKP. Casey is a new member who needs to get geared up as soon as possible. A piece of loot that is dropped that is best in slot for both of them. Who should get it? Casey, who's the new member, or Barry, who's the one who's got the fat stack of DKP? So, which one of you wants to put your dukes up for one side or the other, or maybe some other opinion?
Sure.
All right. Because I could go, but I don't think it's fair for me to give my answer ahead of time. So.
Well, there's two different perspectives here, and I don't mean the people. I mean, one is the guild leader, and one is actually being in it. Two members, something drops. First of all, I'm going to start with the guild leader perspective. If you're running DKP, you already have things in place to deal with inflation. Some have zero sum. There's a lot of different ways to address stuff like this. It depends, when Casey came in, where you're at in the raid content. However, we're going to make this pretty generic and easy. You're in the middle of progression stuff. You've got a couple of bosses down. You don't have a zero sum. You have a little bit of something to deal with inflation. But new guy comes in. But you have your old guy. He needs an item. If you're running DKP, you're not running Absolute, you're not running some sort of other system, it's going to go to the guy who can purchase the item. It's that simple. That's how these systems are built. The item is weighted. It's worth so much. Attendance is worth so much. Stuff that you add to the guild bank is worth so much. You know what? I'm sorry to you, Casey. I'm not sure why you need to be geared up as fast as possible. If you need to be geared up, you can sit in line and wait till it's your turn, and you have your own bank stack. When it comes to being a member of the raid, the only time where the social aspect becomes interesting is if people are like, yo, Barry, this kid needs this boost. It's a huge boost for him. Consider passing on it. But if, again, you're running DKP and you have the points, you are SOL.
Interesting. Okay. What do you think, Screen?
It is relatively interesting. In all honesty, from my point of view, what I'd probably do is just ask. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're running DKP, like Blank says, when it comes down to it, rules is rules. But from a common sense perspective, you probably just ask Barry if he really needs it that much. The interesting thing is how groups of people, like guilds, like you said, like communities, how they'll act in this sort of situation as opposed to a game imposed system. So whereas, say, take round robin or Suicide Kings, you're using something like that, and you've got people who are looting stuff, and say you're doing it in a round robin, perspective, and you've got random players in a group, they've gone looking for group, looking for raid, whatever. You won't generally tend to find that these players will pass on anything, or they'll pick something up and then go, oh right, well, he needs it, he's, you know, XYZ number of levels lower than me. Whereas within the kind of socio-political landscape of a guild, you'll find people will turn around and they will tend to pass on these things. You don't need to enforce DKP, because people will get involved in a guild, like I said before, because guilds have a mutual support structure. You don't get involved in a guild just to get stuff for yourself. Well, generally you don't anyway. So that
You
mutual
hope
support.
not.
Yeah.
You really
Well-
hope not.
Well,
'cause,
that
I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times where when I was running the guild, I had to kick people out because they were so much so, I'm literally in this for myself. And there are people out there who will hunt down guilds that are progression-based guilds, go in just to gear up and then leave. There are people who have
Well-
that kind of mentality. So you hope that's not the case.
Well, this is one of the problems of the kind of way that loot distribution within MMOs work. You generally tend to have tend to have three categories. You have kind of like, you have need, you have equity, and you have equality. So you've got needs, which are generally bound by systems like council systems, or lead loots, or someone. Basically, it's decided for you. Someone will go, they need this, that give them it. And that's pretty much how it's decided. You've got equity-based systems where people will get progression points. So equity being that it's fair,
Time
based on time put in. So you've got like attendance points averaged over gear points, or you've got DKP, things like that. And then you've got quality, where it's straight up like round robin or Suicide Kings, where everyone gets a shot at the pot and then everyone gets something. They all have things that are wrong with, not wrong, but they can be imbalanced. So you can have a council system which can become corrupt, or people don't necessarily agree with. That takes a lot of trust to run a council system. You can have equity-based system where you have people who are achievement hoarders who will hoard all their DKP or all their points until they get that one mount, that one bit of loot, and they just go, bang, I'll have that. Someone else might have put in more time over the last 3-4 months, or they might have been that one vital tank that you've needed, have turned up to every raid to get this, and then they go, I've been here for 2 years, there's all my DKP, and it doesn't feel fair. And then again, you've got things like Suicide Kings and Round Robin that are just flat out, that might as well just be random roll, and then again you get to random roll, which is theoretically the fairest thing, but again, it's not, because people get stuff that they don't want, and people want stuff that they don't get. So all the systems have problems with them, and it's finding the best one within the community you've got to try and balance conflict as best you can. And that's why, realistically, from day to day, you just ask Barry, and at the end of the day, if he's going to be a troll and he's going to take it just for the sake of it, then that's something you just need to take note of and deal with in the long run. But if the guy's got the DKP and he wants to do that, then he will. But that'll impact the way the other guild members are going to interact with him, and he's going to be aware of that. So, majority of the time, you're going to hope, like you said, you've had to kick people out that have been in the game just for themselves, and that's inevitably at the extension of that theory where it's going to go. Someone who's going to act like that consistently is going to end up not fitting in with the kind of community you would hope to want to build, and going to end up out of it.
Okay, so what you are saying then is Blank is sort of along the lines of, TeamBarry, rules are rules. We have a Ask Barry, or Ask TeamBarry, so to speak, because rules are rules, but, you're trying to figure out if the culture you've set up for your community or your guild is producing the type of players that you want, or attracting the type of players that you want into your guild or community. I mean, that's kind of the 2 points of views I'm getting from you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, here's where I get to give my opinion on it. To me, this is an incredibly difficult situation, because I would not want to look at it to start from the perspective of Barry or Casey. You know, if Barry is sitting there and he is doing nothing but holding on to his DKP until the end of time, how is that benefiting the guild? So that kind of irks me a little bit. And then if we have Casey, who is coming into the guild fresh and is looking for gear, just like Blank was saying, you know, hey, get in line kind of a thing, because if you need gear, obviously Barry needs gear as well. I kind of look at it from the perspective of, if I brought somebody into my community or my guild, there's a reason I brought them in. I don't just let them in willy-nilly, at least not the way we work. You know, there is a process to getting in. There is no just, here, join us. It doesn't work like that. So to me, trying to sit there and deny somebody coming in the opportunity is kind of like, almost like slapping them in the face by saying, I trusted you into my community, but I don't trust you to actually have input on this. So I would actually rather step back and ask, what is better for this guild? Is it better that Barry gets it, or is it better that Casey gets it? And I would hope that the community and the guild that I have fostered by letting both of these individuals in, because Barry had to go through the same process Casey went through, by fostering the type of community that I feel is strong and that I believe in, they also believe in it as well. So I would want them to look at it from the perspective of, how am I helping the community? Because the reality is, if I'm going to sit there and just hold my DKP, just to hold my DKP, how am I helping?
Yeah, but Pseudo, I feel like what you're describing is more of what I've run in the past, which is just a very transparent, variable, explained council system. Like, you wouldn't run DKP because DKP is set and rigid, so people know. If you have to, like Screen was saying, if you ask Barry to pass on it and not to be a dick, doesn't count.
It counts. That counts.
No, it does. That's not a swear. You can see, you can hear
It's
that
not
on
a swear
cable.
on your house, yeah?
No, it counts on cable TV. You could say it, so it's still good. But if you have to ask Barry, and that's the position you're taking, you wouldn't run DKP. DKP would not be for your organization. You would have a council system where it's like the amount of time you put in, how much you put in the guild, how many social tweets you put out, whatever it is that you want. The way that you organize it, has so many points, and then you let people know, we think that this goes to this person because.
Well, I think I think the definition there is it's a very, very thin line in that, though. That there's a difference between asking someone in DKP, do you want to pass on this? He needs it.
Yeah.
Between then enforcing it and going, oh, we're in DKP, but I'm a guild lead, I think he needs it. There you go, because like Blank says, that one, it undermines the system you've got in place. Two, it means you might as well not be running it. Whereas when you can come into a situation where you can turn around to your guild member and go, this guy could use that,
right,
and then let them make their decision. The power's still in their hands. You're not undermining the system. You're just giving it a nudge to let them know that you're looking at it.
Well, I think the reality is, regardless of what solution you go with, be it a DKP, be it Suicide Kings, be it a loot council, be it a hybrid of whatever creation you've decided to create, like, I don't know, maybe you want Baby Marmoset to be the new way of handling loot. Whatever choice you make, it needs to be reflected in the guild. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
And it also should be incredibly transparent as well. I mean, transparency is so
biggest
important.
point, man.
So important. There is no... The problem is, like you were saying, Screen, games give us loot, and then they do it in a manner where we as guild members, council members, guild leaders, people who are a part of communities have to make decisions on the fairest way to handle the distribution of loot. And there is no perfect solution, because not one solution fits all. It just doesn't work that way. But I think the reality is, as long as you are transparent and clear about what your way of handling loot is, as long as in the process, whatever decisions you make are backed up and fostered within your culture of your community or guild, and as long as everyone is clear on all of that, whatever you pick, Make certain you do your research. Don't just willy-nilly pick something, because that is the worst thing you could do. Experience helps, believe me. And listen to people. But this actually kind of leads us into our sort of next section. I mean, I think the reality is how you build your guild is going to impact everything about you.
Oh,
Everything.
indeed. You're gonna if you run into a progressive PvE raiding guild, you're gonna see this problem a lot more than if you build a focused PvP guild. Games that have guilds that go into PvP tend to have
I agree with that.
game elements that give you reward currency that you'll spend on PvP gear, and it's very much tied to a player. So you don't generally tend to have this problem within PvP communities a lot, which is why we don't see this huge amounts these days. Whereas you get a progressive PvE raiding guild, then you're getting your gear through raids at the end of the day, and you're going to focus on this problem a lot more. So, you know, you want to solve this problem, play PvP.
Right, so there you have it. If you want to solve the loot problem, play PvP. But our next show, by the way, folks, is going to have a guest. It is Vistel. He has been an active member in our community for a while, but he specifically wants to come on and talk about recruitment, both being recruited and doing the recruitment itself, which I think is where you start when it comes to a guild for fostering the type of community you want. And this is actually in the next episode where we tackle that lovely question, should there be an interview application process? No answers now, because I know how much you really want to just say it, but we're not there.
Have you got those flashcards, Blank?
You should just let everybody in your bloody guild. Just let them all in. Or run around and be 10,000 dig dogs strong. That's it. That's all I got. I'm done.
What are we trying to accomplish? The Million Idiot March?
Yes. Yep. That's what we're trying to do.
Or at least the two-man idiot march.
Now, I want to, again, give my hats off to everyone who we've had making comments. We've had some amazing comments from Nintari and from VOTF Gaming. I am not ignoring you. I'm just trying to make certain that we end at a relatively reasonable time. I'm being trolled. This is unfair. But
in fairness, before the show you were being trolled. This is enough.
I have you two with me. Of course I'm being trolled. Okay, anyway, we now get to move on to the fun part of the show called Trailblazers, which is where we actually give a little bit of a highlight to a community that we believe is doing a good job. And I can just see this small little face from Blank. Blank, should I sit back and just kind of let you say one of them? Who we want to spotlight, or you could just
no, feel free. I was just contributing to chat. That was all. Feel free to continue with the Trailblazers, because this is the fun part of the show. This is the fun part of the show.
Oh, because the rest of the show isn't fun. Thanks.
That's what you just said. That you literally just said.
I probably did. You know what?
You did. You're like, and now we get into the Trailblazers. This is the fun part.
Sucks. Well, funny. I probably should say it's the funny part, because the last part was a bit serious. So.
All right. This is the fun part. This is the funny part.
Funny. Add an NY to it, and there we go. But yes.
Got it.
So, in this particular episode, we are going to be highlighting a couple of WildStar communities. Now, the reason why we're doing this is because, for me, I have never been a part of a gaming community, and notice we're using the phrase community here, but I've never seen a gaming community so supportive, strong, and helpful for each other. And in particular, there are quite a few WildStar communities that deserve mention, but in particular, I actually want to give mad props to the IRC chat room for WildStar. Now, when I spoke with them earlier today, I had people like Joa and Kazagar and Jarnod who were all like, yes, our community! And the reason why I want to give them a spotlight is because, to quote them, they're saving the world. Would you agree?
One letter on IRC at a time.
Yes, they are saving the world one letter and IRC at a time. But the reality is, there's a lot of different guilds and communities that come to the WildStar chat room community to actually share their experiences, their thoughts, not just about WildStar, but about literally anything. I've seen people discussing the best recipes for cookies. So
It's old school. IRC chat is old school. Like I had to re-download
it's
MIRC
multiplayer notepad.
to like. I was like, wait, do you guys have a chat? What do you mean chat? Do I have to get my AOL and my ICQ up here too?
Oh.
Like, what's going on? But it's funny because I've actually.
Age, old man.
Trust me, I'm when it comes to gaming, I've been there since dial-up on the old Half-Lives.
28K baud
But-
modem.
Uh, yes, internet. But no, it's nice to see IRC. I've actually watched a couple of trends because that's marketing and networking and stuff, and it's been very interesting. Very early on, after PAX East was when we started coming onto the WildStar scene, and IRC was like really kind of small. It's very like the real hardcore people and a couple of fan sites, and then it exploded, and now like the community has a bunch of different outlets for information. So there's still that core contingent that's there that still converses and talks in IRC. But there's so many different outlets now that's not like the only place to get breaking news. It used to be, but it's not.
Yeah.
But it's really nice to be able to pop on there, and then every once in a while you see a dev and you're like, oh hey, hi, what's up? And they're just trolling you just like everyone else. So it's a good time.
And actually, because of the fact that we were looking at IRC, I want to give a very special thank you to Global Gamers. They are actually the IRC network that hosts the WildStar chat. They also host the EQ Next chat. They host chat for the gaming community, or I should say a lot of the gaming community, because there are quite a few IRC networks out there. But I have, from my own personal experience, never received so much support and care and concern, and they have something special going on this week, guys. Something that is a goal of theirs. And it seems, we have the WildStar IRC chat room saving the world one character at a time, yet we have the Global Gamers IRC network basically trying to take over the world, I guess, one gaming channel at a time? Maybe.
It's interesting.
Maybe.
It is interesting.
There are a lot of guilds and communities and places out there that state, as a joke or not, that they're planning on taking over the world. I'll be curious to see which one ends up the victor. It's sort of like Highlander. There can be only one.
The one thing I will say is it's a nice place to be able to connect with people quickly. IRC is great for that.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of us older gamers, right, their screen, we're used to using these sort of a thing. My original gaming started in text-based role-playing games. You want old school. Oh yeah.
You were a moderator?
Sorry, what, you LARP?
I did actually, all the time.
Of course he
everywhere.
LARPed. He's a Viking.
But
That's...
in the world where we have social media, we have all these websites, there's all this sort of stuff. It's nice to have something that's comfortable where like if you're plugged into a place where there's not a lot of extra noise, because I really do appreciate it. Even though it's old school, it's the same thing as looking at print and media now. It's nice to look at an article online, but every once in a while to pick up a newspaper is still refreshing. And that's what I look at IRC as. Like it's there, it's nice. It may not be brand new and flashy, but the core content is still there. So.
Oh, it is multiplayer notepad. That's at least the way I've always seen it.
Yep.
But yes. And that pretty much wraps up our little Trailblazers. If you have a community that you want us to give props to, go to MMOBuff.TV and you can find all the links. Pick one. I watch them all. And then we will approach them and speak with them and see about getting them on the show to talk communities. Or guilds. Depends. But now we move on to KUMBAYA. This is where we get to have people give their little brags about their guilds or state things like, hey, recruitment's opening, or hey, this is happening in our guild this week, or we accomplished taking down Boss Y last week, or we actually killed Screenager in PvP the week before. We are giving people a chance to brag.
Pictures, or it didn't happen.
Ah, something tells me there's probably video in today's day and age, more so than pictures. But yes, we're going to
Not about that, but yeah, we won't talk about that.
sort of staying on the Wild Star kind of relations. For those of you who hang out in the IRC chat and who also hang out in a variety of other Wild Star locations, you might be familiar with someone named Hamster. Hamster is pulling together a very special event for the German Wild Star players. And this event will be taking place 3 days after open beta testing begins. Now, when is that? I can't answer that question. All I know is it's 3 days after open beta, and it is going to be set up and run through their TeamSpeak. If you are interested in getting involved, especially if you are interested in helping out in the German speakers, in the German community, please get in touch with him. You can do so at admin@, and I'm only going to spell this out because me trying to pronounce it will probably screw people up. So you can contact Hamster at admin@das-uhrwerk.de, which actually stands for the clockwork in German. I learned that today.
Nice.
Now, I'm going to sit back because I want Blank to KUMBAYA this particular one.
What? You want me to read this?
Oh, yes, I do.
We have to renegotiate my contract. I don't think this sort of.
After the show.
I don't even know if I can read this. A new Slayer of Afterlife and Boon Control and the Cat Herder of Vengeance of the Fallen has informed us that VOTF is changing website URLs to say goodbye to the old and hello to the new. The new site is www.votf.net. To quote, "So sexy and sleek." They are planning to be putting articles up regarding top-end gaming focused on PvP and generally encompassing all MMO company interaction and various other issues. I did get to see the website, and it is indeed sleek and sexy.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Screen, how you feeling about that? I know you've got a little tiny, just a small little bit of rivalry with Anu. You know, are you pleased to see your the one who labels himself Slayer of Afterlife and Boon Control having a new website change? Are you pleased to see their progress?
Actually, yeah, it's overdue. The old one was a piece of trash.
I don't think Anu would disagree with you at all there. Although the way he said it was just a little old and outdated. Definitely something.
No, in fairness, the guys at VOTF are fantastic. They're one of the premier PvP guilds that the EU has to offer. They really are. And it's a great community, and they've got a lot of good, if highly opinionated players. And I'm being nice to you. Stop talking in chat. Shush. And as it stands, they actually they've got some articles up at the moment. And the article they were talking I'm talking about, they've just posted up. It's about how what keeps a competitive guild going, and how do they move forward with goals. It's worth having a read. It's pretty spot on if you've not been part of a competitive, progressive guild, then it's certainly worth reading. That's worth going there. It's not necessarily worth no, it is worth joining them. They are a great guild if they'll have you. A
little birdie has whispered in my ear that there is a possibility that we will actually have Anu coming on to the Campfire to discuss guild-related stuff.
I will be tripping down a flight of stairs when that happens. I don't know if I can be here for all of that noise, but I will.
I don't know if Pseudo can take the three of us. I think actually she'll be throwing herself down a flight of stairs if that happens.
Is this the kind of thing where I need to get like a chair and a whip so that I can keep you guys like tamed and on topic, kind of a thing?
You don't even plan topics for that day. Just have chunks of time.
Topics.
You're just like, look, here's like 3 topics we're gonna talk about for the day, and that's gonna be it.
I'll give you Anu's control words. So just the words that you say that will just set him off. Just let him go.
This is obviously not something we quite want to advertise to everybody. Probably not the best way to do things, but you know.
Well, I did have one thing I was going to say that Vengeance are, again, as Green said, they're definitely one of the EU guilds you look out for when they're when you're PvPing, and it is nice to see a guild, a community. I guess they're calling themselves a community, an organization that has
a rabble.
that has a website that is as good looking as they actually do on the battleground. And that's as nice as you're going to get out of me for now. So congratulations on the site. It looks real sharp. It looks good.
And all of this is going to come back to this tenfold whenever Anu gets on this show.
Oh, good God.
Oh, boy.
This is like going to be some hard-hitting good times when you bring them in here.
Well, it's exciting and enjoyable with you guys, just the 2 of you. Everyone else is icing on the cake?
Oh, you're so nice and sweet.
No
I almost swore again.
That. See, there you go. Right, and we are reaching the end of our show, and it is lights out time for us here at the Campfire, which means we will be kicking dirt onto the fire until next week. However, as a reminder, next week on the Campfire, Viston will be joining us, and we're going to be looking at recruitment. If you have a story, a situation, or a scenario you want us to dig into, go to MMOBuff.TV, pick some way to contact me. It's that simple. There will be a contact form on there very, very soon, believe me, but there's not right now. That's why I keep saying
until then, just release the cats.
Yes, but until then, do that. And of course, I am just going to have to say thank you to Screen and Blank for joining me for yet again another episode of the Campfire. And we'll stick around for just a couple minutes because I think I have somebody here who wants to screen bomb everybody who happens to be watching the show, and you'll just have to wait until after this brief break to actually see who's going to bomb you. I wonder who that could possibly be.
Are we going to be on the camera still? Are we allowed to swear now? Oh, okay.
No, well, you wait until I get... Wow. 1 second.
Open the gates, release the swears.